Hi there, I'm Zara from Zara Tutoring. I'm excited to work with you in this course and thankful for the opportunity to play a role in your test prep journey. At this point, you might be wondering about my background in education. I was a high school math and Spanish teacher for 8 years, 2 years at a private school called Macomb Christian, and then 6 years at Rochester Adams High School. Go Highlanders! For more than a decade now, I've provided one-on-one as well as small group support for the SAT and ACT to thousands of students, helping them achieve their ideal score and get into their dream university. Each student provided me with insight that I've used to continually refine my approach in order to make it as simple yet effective as possible. But enough about me, let's jump into the course. Welcome to the Spotlight SAT Free Sneak Peek. In this short walkthrough, I'm going to guide you through 3 key components of my Spotlight SAT program so that you get a feel for what makes it so effective. First, we'll look at one of my mind mastery strategy videos. Then, we'll explore one of my 36 math modules. And finally, you'll get a preview of one of my 20 reading and writing modules. Every week of my 10-week Spotlight SAT program begins with a brief mindset video. These videos provide powerful psychological tools designed to help students perform at their best, not just during practice, but especially on test day. Let's start with one of my favorite strategies, the reversal of desire. The reversal of desire. This intriguing phrase is the title of one of the most effective psychological tools I've learned and honestly implement almost every day. The reversal of desire was created by psychologists Phil Stutz and Barry Michaels, co-authors of the phenomenal book entitled The Tools. This psychological tool applies not only to students in the context of preparing for the SAT or ACT, but to any aspect of a student or adult's life for that matter, where we experience more fear and resistance than we'd like. We start by setting up the context. You imagine a black cloud filled with all the things you're avoiding and the feelings associated with that avoidance: anxiety, fear, uncertainty, doubt. This tool follows 3 stages. The first stage is bring it on. You run toward and into the black cloud. The second stage is I love pain. It might sound a little sadistic, but you're essentially embracing all those feelings you were trying to avoid, which actually robs them of their power over you. And the third and final stage is pain sets me free. The black cloud shoots you out the other side of it and propels you toward the thing you're avoiding. From there, it's critical that your next action be one of progress on the area you were previously avoiding. After all, most of the things we desire in life are just on the other side of our comfort zone. Let's finish out with a quote by Jim Rohn. We will all experience one pain or the other, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. But the difference is the pain of discipline only weighs ounces, but the pain of regret weighs tons. And remember, you've got this. Next, let's dive into a sample from one of my math modules. In a moment, I'll put up a math question. I want you to attempt it just like you would on test day. To gauge how efficient you are with your approach, grab your phone and open the clock app. Select stopwatch to time yourself. Be sure you have paper, a pencil, and whatever calculator you're comfortable using. If you want to use Desmos, Google Desmos SAT version and click the first result. That version is approved for the digital SAT. Now go ahead and pause this video, attempt the question, and unpause once you're finished. Okay, got your answer? Great. As you watch my step-by-step solution video, I don't want you to focus only on whether you got it right. Instead, ask yourself, did I learn a new technique that I can use on similar questions? Was there a more efficient approach? Can I recognize the theme this question falls under? On average, students get 1 minute and 35 seconds per question on the SAT math section, as outlined in my Tom's Testing Tips document. That assumes all questions are created equal. They're not. Level easy questions should take under 30 seconds. Level medium questions should take under 1 minute. This gives you more time and energy for the level hard questions, the ones worth the most points. The question you just worked on was level medium. Let's check out the instructional breakdown. For our next math lesson, we're on to linear and exponential growth. This is the 7th topic within the problem solving and data analysis category. On this question, it says some values of the function f are shown in the table. Which of the following functions could be f? So something to keep in mind here is recall from our Triple T math document, Tom's Testing Tips, our first tip says don't look at the answer options right away. They'll only confuse you. However, it can be useful to look at the answer format. And on this question, that's definitely the case. So we can see that we're trying to come up with the equation for this function. And whenever you have a table like this, and then you're trying to get the function, we're essentially looking for the regression model. And the easiest approach is using Desmos. So let's go to the upper right corner, just as we would in our own software, where we'll get the Desmos graphing calculator. We'll pull it up and we'll press this plus icon and choose table. And then for X1, we're gonna go ahead and input all these N values, 0, enter, 1, enter, and then notice it starts to notice the pattern. So I can just press enter, enter, and then I'm good at 4. Now I'm gonna go ahead and click into the Y1s, and I'm gonna input all these Y coordinates, which they call f of n in the table. And so I'm just gonna put 1, and then I'm gonna do the / on my keyboard, and it makes a fraction bar for me. I'll put 2, enter, and I'll do the same thing here, 3/4, enter. Now you could choose to use College Board's keyboard, which is in the lower right corner of the software, and use those keys accordingly. But for me, it just feels a little bit easier to type them in. But just to show you, we could do 9 divided by, which makes the fraction bar, 8, and then continue from there. So I'll go back to my keyboard, type these in, and now we have these 5 ordered pairs plotted for us. And notice that over here, it says add regression. So we're gonna go ahead and click there, and they give us a variety of options. The default is linear regression, but notice that's not fitting this model so well. And you could see that options C and D are both in slope-intercept form, meaning that those are following the linear model. Let's contrast that with the exponential model, which is y equals a times b to the x, where a is the y-intercept and b is the common ratio. And notice that options A and B are following that specific format. So we're trying to determine if it's exponential, like options A and B, or linear, like options C and D. So getting back to our graph here, we can see that the linear model, it's okay, but let's go ahead and test out one of the other models. Now you can see there's a ton of options here. We narrowed it down to either linear or exponential. So let's go to exponential. Oh, now that looks perfect. So we can tell it's definitely an exponential model, which means we could totally eliminate options C and D. And now we know it's either A or B, which means we're progressing nicely on our Triple T math document, where we already used the answer format from step 1. In step 2, we did something, which was utilizing Desmos to our advantage. Step 3, once you're certain on one part of the answer, in our case, that it's exponential instead of linear, we're able to eliminate the answer options that it definitely can't be. And now we're on to step 4, where we're going to analyze what makes, in our case, the remaining 2 options different from each other and choose the correct one. So the equation we get here is y equals 0.5 times 1.5 to the x. And something that's pretty neat is if you click right here, it'll go ahead and put that equation for you, and you can see it in red. If I click here, it removes the red and just shows the initial one, but we can keep it on there. And I know that you know what those decimal equivalents are in their fraction form. For example, 0.5 we know is 1/2, which doesn't really help us out because A and B both have 1/2 in the A value, and 1.5 clearly isn't 3, so we can tell it's going to be A. However, what is nice about Desmos is you could go right here, type in 1.5, click this icon here, and it'll turn it into, in this case, an improper fraction. Obviously, you could do the same thing with 0.5, but that's a bit of a waste of time. Now, we could also go to our graphing calculator, just type in 1.5 alpha y equals, and choose option 4, which is going to change it from either a decimal to a fraction or a fraction to a decimal. In this case, it changes it from the decimal to an improper fraction of 3/2. So regardless, we get the correct answer is A. So by far, Desmos was the easiest approach, and that's what I would do time and time again on the SAT. Now let's shift to a sample from the reading and writing section. You'll follow the same process here. Use a stopwatch, pause the video, attempt the question, and resume once you're done. All set? This was a level easy question in the writing category of the reading and writing section. While the average time per question is about 1 minute and 11 seconds per my Tom's Testing Tips document, I recommend you aim for under 1 minute on writing questions. Why? Because reading questions tend to be more time consuming, and having that buffer can make a real difference. Now, let's watch the instructional video together. As you watch, think beyond just getting the correct answer. Did you clearly identify the theme being tested? Was your reasoning sound, or did you get a little lucky? Could you spot this type of question faster next time and apply my method with confidence? For our next reading and writing lesson, we're on to subject modifier placement, which is the 4th of 5 subcategories of form, structure, and sense, the 9th overall theme of the reading and writing section. Subject modifier placement is on page 21 of our Triple T document. So by now you're very comfortable with the fact that we right away go ahead and read that single sentence question that's presented presented after the paragraph so that we know what kind of question we're getting into and we can calibrate our minds accordingly. So when we see which choice completes the text so that it conforms to the conventions of standard English, the unfortunate thing there is we know that the conventions of standard English could be any one of these 8 themes. So how are we supposed to figure out which of these 8 themes it is? Well, unlike our typical recommendation to avoid looking at the answer options right away for a conventions of standard English question, we always want to look at the answer options right away to determine which kind of grammar question we're dealing with. So we'll know it's a subject modifier placement question if the answer options contain more than just a few words. Notice these answer options are quite wordy. And then also if the answer options rearrange words or phrases in different order. And notice in our example, you have this rabinal achi, is how I'm going to pronounce it, but you have it located at the beginning here. You have it at the end in options B and C. You have it toward the end in option D. And then same thing with this name. You have it located kind of toward the middle, front, middle, end. So this matches perfectly with the subject modifier placement question. Now, what's really important to keep in mind is the word or words immediately after the comma should be the noun that the dependent clause leading up to the comma is describing, in other words, is modifying. So let's look at this example. One of the most spoken languages in the world, Spanish, is extremely influential and relevant. So notice the Spanish language is the correct subject of the modifier, one of the most spoken languages in the world. Anything else coming after the comma would be what we call a misplaced modifier. And all the incorrect answer options are going to contain misplaced modifiers for a subject modifier placement question. So here's an example of the previous topic, but with a misplaced modifier. One of the most spoken languages in the world, Spanish's influence and relevance is rapidly growing. Well, Spanish's influence isn't one of the most spoken languages in the world. So we call that a misplaced modifier, and we'd be able to rule that out of the options. So let's look at this particular example. Rabinal Achi is a pre-colonial Maya dance drama performed annually in Rabinal, a town in the Guatemalan highlands. Fun fact, I actually went on a mission trip for 2 months in Guatemala in 2006, and I went back a couple times after that. I love Guatemala. Based on events that occurred when Rabinal was a city-state ruled by a king. And now here's what's important. Notice, you got to be really clear. What are we talking about? What is based on events that occurred when Rabinal was a city-state ruled by a king? Well, we've already talked about this pre-colonial Maya dance drama called Rabinal Achi. So what should come right after the comma? The thing that's based on events, right? This drama. So let's right away go to the answer options and start ruling some things out here. So notice option A does have Rabinal Achi at the beginning. In other words, right after this comma here, which is what we want. So we'll keep it in the running. Every other option throws Rabinal Achi in a different location, making options B, C, and D all examples of misplaced modifiers, where instead they're saying that based on events, this person as if he were the drama. That doesn't make sense. Same thing here, it talks about the military leader, which is this Kiche Achi, but that's not what we're referring to. We're referring to the actual dance drama. And then option C doesn't make sense either. Based on events, there was the military leader. No, we're talking about the drama. So we eliminate B, C, and D, and that makes A the correct answer. It's been a pleasure guiding you through this Spotlight SAT free sneak peek. We can't wait to meet with you and your parent for your free strategy session, where we'll map out a personalized plan to help you maximize your digital SAT score. Until then, remember, you got this.